Okay.
I see by the old clock on the wall, and there's no clock on this wall, that's a figure of speech,
No, but
that it is
Sunday again.
Sunday again.
Sunday hath come again.
And by golly, here we are.
Here we is. Man, oh man. I can't believe it's April and that it's like the middle of April.
Yep. And that next week will be the TCM Classic Film Festival.
Yeah, which is also wild. And in person, in real life, which is lovely.
Which we'll talk about quite a bit today.
Yes. Putting everything where it's supposed to go.
And Friday night, my wife Allison and I went to the opening night of this year's Noir City Festival, the 23rd.
Say it like mommy.
Noir City Festival.
Noir.
And which is at the Hollywood Legion building in their beautiful new auditorium, or newish.
They've done such a great job, really restoring it, and it's a lot of fun. It sucks that the location is where it is, only because it's very easy to pass, and there's so much
It's on Highland Avenue.
Yeah.
If you live in the San Fernando Valley as we do, and you take the Hollywood Freeway, the 101. This is such a California conversation. Yeah. Going into Hollywood, going south, heading toward Hollywood.
I feel like this is more detail than anyone needs.
But Highland Avenue, you run into Highland Avenue. You actually exit onto Highland Avenue.
You run into it?
Well, you drive into it.
I know.
And you pass the Hollywood Bowl, big landmark, and then suddenly there you are.
I've got someone being weird as hell, and I'm just getting rid of it.
Okay.
Real quick. You gotta, you've made it when you have creepy people trying to talk to you and say odd things.
Oh dear.
That must be it, right?
Oh dear.
There we go. God bless that block button. God bless that block button.
Block that email.
There we go.
Block that message. Anyway, the Hollywood Legion Auditorium, if you haven't been there yet, and you are attending the TCM Classic Film Festival, they used it the last time they held that in person.
Yes.
And everyone was very, very pleased.
Sit forward, Mr.
It's a really nice place to watch a movie. Good sized auditorium, nice screen, nice presentation.
Yes.
And
run by people who actually love movies. Imagine that.
Yep.
Imagine that.
And we wish them every success.
Somebody was waiting for me to make you sit up straight. See this.
Okay.
See, this is where we're at now.
It's become a ritual. It's become ritualistic.
They know, young man.
Oh well.
Man, oh man.
So we were there Friday night for the opening night. The opening night consisted of 2 films by Cyril Endfield, also known as Cy Endfield. And the first was a film that I have missed these many years, called Try and Get Me.
Okay.
Lloyd Bridges, Frank Lovejoy, and Richard Carlson, and the great Adele Jurgens, among others. Wow, what a powerful movie. What a powerful movie. About a real life incident that took place in the 30s, a lynching incident in San Jose, California. And it's so well done. Frightening.
I'm smiling only because you didn't tell me anything about that. You just told me how much you hated the second one.
Well, yes.
So I'm smiling. I'm laughing because you're going, oh, it's really tough film and very upsetting. But all you said when you came home was, oh my God, this other movie we watched.
They paired it with a film called The Argyle Secrets, and also written and directed by Cyril Endfield, and starring William Gargan and a young Marjorie Lord, who you may remember from Danny Thomas's longtime TV show, and some character people. Well, it's 64 minutes long. How bad could it be? It's only 64 minutes long. It felt like 164
of the longest minutes he's ever experienced. So funny. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. He says, "My hair looks nice today. I appreciate that.
Well,
Thank
yes,
you."
it does.
Uh,
It does indeed.
Hard to keep up this hair when you have a baby, I'll tell you what. A bunch of folks are asking if Daisy enjoyed her first Easter. We're Jews, so we don't do anything for Easter.
She may have enjoyed her first
She may have
Easter.
enjoyed it. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Probably when she's bigger, I will maybe take her Easter egg hunting or things like that, because her friends will do it, and I'll have her pose with a giant scary bunny or something like that. But no, in general, we are Jews. We don't have that, but we do have Passover, which started Friday night. So, and yesterday we ordered dinner last night, and one of the options on the menu was matzah pizza. Now, if you've ever eaten matzah, they make it better now. There are a lot of forms of it that are not quite as disgusting.
Well, not so much disgusting as tasteless.
Well, that too, But yeah, so we did try that. It was not as bad as it could have been, is the best review I can give it. It could have tasted much worse than it did.
Yes.
Kyle says he loves chocolate matzah. I feel like that's the only way to not get constipated eating matzah. You have to
don't go into detail.
I'm not. Old Jewish ladies my entire life said, don't eat too much matzah. You never know what's going to happen. Don't eat too much matzah. Yes, the afikomen. If you are not a Jewish, Passover is an important holiday for us. And one of the things you get to do that they've sort of made fun for kids is you hide something called the afikomen, which is a piece of matzah that they wrap up, hide it somewhere, and the kids have to go look for it. And then you win a $1
reward of some sort.
Jeannie used to give me Barbies. I was the only child at the Seder we grew up going to, and she would buy me these really beautiful Barbie dolls. So, and she always hid it in the same place, the piano. She'd close the top of the keys, bench, and it was always not the bench.
I understand.
The piano itself, yeah. Just open that up. There you go. Have you ever watched the Rugrats Passover episode? Yes, and a very good friend of ours is the reason that even exists. You know what I'm talking about, do you not?
No.
Michael Bell.
Well, I know Michael Bell was the voice of one of the grown-ups.
He's a big part of why they had
that
wonderful episode. Yeah,
wonderful.
He's very proud of that.
As well he should be.
Exactly. A few folks are asking if we've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. We have not. Would like to.
We had hoped to get to it earlier this week.
Yes.
Alice and I hoped to get to it earlier this week, and that did not happen. We had a very eventful week.
Oh, we've had a week. But yeah, my husband has been away for almost 2.5 weeks. He's supposed to come back today working. And yes, Nick is pointing out that Jerry Beck, who is the cartoon aficionado, one of my dad's oldest friends, married a woman named Cheryl Chase, and she is the voice of Angelica. And let me tell you, as a little kid, when I first met her, that was the coolest thing in the world, that Jerry brought Angelica to the house. Anyway, my husband's not here, so my parents have been helping me keep my infant alive, which is very thoughtful of you. And so we haven't been able to see any movies. I'm hoping when my husband comes home that I'll be able to have him watch our daughter so we can go see it.
However, we did have a wonderful hour-long conversation with Brian Cox, and we posted that Friday.
Two of our new episodes. One is with Eddie Marsan, who we love, and he could not have been sweeter. He could not have been lovelier than he was. And
typically, for guys who often play creepy, nasty, strange people, he's just a doll.
Yeah.
Father of 4.
So sweet. Such a sweet man. And articulate, of course. And so that was a blast. And then we got to interview Brian Cox, the Brian Cox.
I keep hitting this. I'm sorry. I apologize.
And it's Brian Cox. Again, like
our friend Stephen Smith said yesterday, your Brian Cox interview, I never thought I'd hear him talking about Eugene Pellett. He's an old movie nut. And he just did a guest programming stint on TCM. And it was a pleasure to talk to him. And also, I spent quality time with his new memoir called "Putting the Rabbit in the Hat," which I recommend very highly. Very entertaining book.
Yeah, someone's pointing out it always seems like actors who usually play villains seem to be very kind in real life. It is funny, isn't it? That I don't know. First of all, there are some folks who they definitely get typecast at a certain point, right? You know, they start playing something and then people recognize them
Hmm.
as that thing.
Hmm.
Um, Other times, it's just that an actor's really, really talented,
Yeah.
and you believe
Or
them.
versatile.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was what's so funny talking to Brian Cox, because he even said, you know, in playing Logan Roy, if you are not familiar, he's on the show Succession, which is a hugely popular TV show, and he's great in it. Uh, he, he says the difference between him and Logan is that Logan is a pessimist and that Brian is an optimist. And it's so interesting to hear someone like that who's so good at playing evil, bad guys.
He's the first man who played Hannibal Lecter.
Yes, a few folks. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It is interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a good
His favorite actor, by the way, is Spencer Tracy.
Yeah, so he can't be all that bad, right? Has either one of you read the memoir of James Garner, The Garner Files? Have you read it?
Yes, I went through it. It was done by a fellow I know slightly named John Winokur, who interviewed Garner and got sort of his take on the various films and TV shows he did. So you get sort of bite-sized memories of his career, and it's fun. If you like James Garner, then you're definitely going to have a good time going through that book.
My dad is so good. He reads so many of these biographies and autobiographies, and you know, it's interesting to see what someone wants to share with you, and you can kind of get a sense of what they want you to take away from the book. You know, what's the purpose? Do they want you to think, wow, this person really loves film? Do they want you to think, oh, he overcame obstacles? Whatever it is. And I think one of the things that you said with his book stood out the most, Brian Cox's book, is that he was really honest
Well, yes, he talks about not being a very good father.
Yeah.
And being an absent father much of the time. And he had two families. And he found the love of his life, who is the woman to whom he's currently married. And he had some dalliances along the way. There's an old-fashioned word.
That is a very nice word.
And he was not a drinker.
Yeah, which is a shock.
Yes, he may be the only British actor of any note.
But not even that. He's a Scot. He's Scottish. And though he describes himself, he just did one of those 23andMe things, and he found out that he's 80% Irish. But he said, and he knew that to a degree. And he said in the UK, he's known as a Micmac, which is hilarious.
Yeah. But he was on the TV show. He was on the one that Henry Louis Gates hosts on PBS.
Yeah.
And that's how he found out about his heritage.
Yes.
Anyway,
Hi, Lynn. Hello, Lynn.
He's a very interesting guy, and his book is really worth reading, especially if you like theatrical memoirs. And it's more about theater than film, because that's where his heart is, and it's also where he worked most of the time. He talks about essentially the issue of selling out in doing movies.
Yeah.
And the upside and downside of that.
Yeah. You should listen, because he's wonderful to listen to. But he tells a great story about Sir Laurence Olivier. And whenever you're speaking to someone who is a direct connection to someone, that's always a bit overwhelming. You know, so when he's talking about Sir Laurence Olivier, he's talking about him firsthand. Yeah. You know, and that, like with anything, there's only going to be so many people at a certain point who have done that. Right. Akin to, when we talk about someone like Floyd Norman, who is also being honored at TCM this coming weekend. Floyd's one of the few people left who really knew Walt. who really knew Walt Disney. And that is, that list is getting shorter and shorter
Yeah.
of folks that actually knew
Yeah.
him.
And worked with him.
Yeah.
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 Then, as I say, it's been a busy week, a hectic week.
Yeah.
And some very sad news this week with the demise of Gilbert Gottfried. And
I didn't know which horrible thing you were going to go for. We've had like 6 this week. I didn't know which.
And Gilbert was Mark Maron replayed a 2012 episode he did with Gilbert and talked about it a little bit. And one of the things he said that I thought was really, really nice, he said, in any line of work or walk of life, whatever you want to call it, to be unique is something. I mean, not many people can be described that way. He said, Gilbert was unique.
Yeah.
And a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he was one of a kind. And we were lucky to get to know him just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was on his
You were on
amazing
several
Colossal
times. Yeah.
podcast several times.
Craig
with
is
his
saying,
partner, Frank Santapadre.
Craig is saying podcast lovers are in mourning this week after the devastating loss of the great Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah. It's, the thing about him was, first of all, if you've had much experience with comics in general, a lot of them tend to be pretty quiet. In person. Not all, but much of the time. And we've now had the experience of meeting a lot of comics we wouldn't normally because of Doug Benson. And my dad, having been on his show so many times, we've met a lot of these comics. And sometimes you're sitting backstage with them and they're just so completely unassuming. Gilbert, who was a pretty petite person.
And whose shtick was being loud.
This very, very loud character. But he was pretty little, in real life. Small, but also small. He's quite quiet. And he sits with his wife, Dara, who's incredible. Upon meeting Dara, I understood why we got each other. And it's that Leonard has an Alice and Gilbert has a Dara. And very much that kind of a relationship. And she was sort of his anchor.
Yeah.
And safe space.
And I wrote a note to his podcast partner, Frank Santapadre.
Yeah.
And I said how wonderful it was that the two of them found each other.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they brought out the best in each other. Frank was a fan of Gilbert's.
Yeah.
And knew him for a long time and had watched him work when he was on his way up in little dives in New York comedy clubs.
Yeah.
And Frank is an encyclopedic show business fan and historian. And the two of them meshed on that show.
Yeah.
And they really made it special.
Yeah. So the reason, when part of how we first met him was because he was out with his documentary called Gilbert, which I cannot recommend enough. It's such a good doc and it's so interesting.
Yes.
But so for me, my parents had met him. I had not yet. We're in a car heading over to the main theater, Fantastic Fest, which is a festival we talk about a lot. It's in Austin, Texas. And Dara and his wife and I are talking, and Gil's just sort of sitting there quietly.
Had we already met him in Michigan at the Traverse City?
You had.
Yeah.
I hadn't.
Okay.
No. That came next. That happened after.
Okay.
So we, I'm talking to her, and he's just really soft spoken, and then he's kind of warming up. He's warmed up to me, and started talking a bit more. And he's just very, very sweet. Then we have recorded many at this point live episodes of our show from the Fantastic Fest stage. We've interviewed all kinds. I mean, what's it? Tim Burton, Vince Vaughn,
Bruce Campbell,
Justin Long. God, it's so many that my brain is not even. Yeah, see this. My brain is.
One lives in Austin. Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Elijah Wood. Yeah,
Elijah Wood.
We had Elijah Wood. A lot of people. My brain is mush because we've done so many. I don't even remember anymore. But Gilbert was one of those. And yes, Trevor, Viva Fantastic Fest. I hope we'll both be there this year. And so we're sitting on stage, and Gilbert, you'll hear, starts to get louder and louder. And people kept asking me, is that voice fake? It's not. It's just that he is quite quiet until he gets in front of an audience, then he gets louder. And when he gets louder, then he sounds like the voice we all recognize.
And if the audience responds,
then it just, yeah. So we just had a wonderful time with him. And then we got to see him another handful of times. And he has 2 kids who he absolutely adored. His son has really gotten into acting. And he works quite a bit. And his daughter too. So yeah. So finding out that he'd passed, really heartbreaking. Because first, I mean, he was 67, I think. You know, that's not enough. And for me, of course, thinking about his kids, it's just like, that's not, you know, no, that's not how that's supposed to go. So it was heartbreaking. It really, really was. And that's been part of it.
And we're going to repost. Or post a new link.
I'm gonna. We have an email list. If you go to leonardmaltin.com, my dad's website, there's an email blast that we send out whenever he posts or when we have new podcast episodes, all that kind of stuff. And it's easy, and it just lets you keep up with things.
And it's free.
So that is, we're going to have it tomorrow, put it up everywhere.
In general, FYI, we have all 5.5 to 6 years of our hour-long interview podcasts online for free.
Yeah.
So if you want to go browsing through there, you'll find a lot of wonderful people.
Quincy Jones, Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Angela Lansbury,
Al Pacino,
Amy Adams. I was thinking of
Jordan Peele,
of course. A lot of character actors who we love. Just all sorts. We've been so
My favorite
lucky.
is still Richard Donner, one of our favorites too.
That's Frank is saying, that episode. Do you remember? My dad is not. It's funny, considering he's a film critic. He's not a very observant human. My mom and I are the ones who sort of pay attention to that stuff, and my dad is more so he's just there. No. No, my mom and I tease him. We'll ask him a question. They say this
to my face, folks.
Yeah,
so it's not like they're talking behind my back.
No, it makes my mom and I laugh because we'll say, well, what was so-and-so like? And he goes, I'm like, how do you know that? So we're the ones who notice those kinds of things. And that was definitely one. Anyway. Someone else did ask, because I talked about it a little bit in a story. My mom's brother passed away. And that's now, I guess, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago, my uncle passed away. So my mom is dealing with that. It's just been a wild time.
Yeah. And we have yet another friend who had a tragedy.
Too many sad things the last couple of weeks. But I'll tell you what, I have held on to my kid harder than she has probably now she's just like, lady, back off. Like, I've had enough of you, because I'm just like, let me cuddle you. I love you. Anyway, getting through all of those things.
I can't review this movie yet because it doesn't open until next Friday.
Yeah.
But I got to show The Northman to my class at USC and interview and meet Robert Eggers, its co-writer and director, whose work you may know, The Witch and The Lighthouse are his 2 previous features. And this time he had $90 million to spend to make the most authentic and ambitious Viking movie of all time, with Alexander Skarsgård, who, being Swedish, grew up with a particular interest, I'm sure fueled in part by his father's spelling, in Viking history and Viking culture. So it's quite something.
Yeah. Somebody asked me what movies we're looking forward to right now. I don't even know, to be honest with you. As I say, our world is a bit of a blur at the moment, especially with the baby. So it's a bit tougher to try to keep up.
The baby has kind of overtaken our life. And I'm not saying it as an excuse for anything, but just getting normal things accomplished has become, in our household, a little more challenging.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult.
We did finally, I got to finish reading, and we posted my review of James Curtis's wonderful new biography of Buster Keaton. And it's called Buster Keaton, A Filmmaker's Life. And that subtitle is in itself revealing.
Yeah.
Because if you ask most people who was Buster Keaton, they'd say, oh, he was a great silent comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And he was. But he was also the genius who conceived all of those films. And even if he didn't take directing credit always, and he didn't, he was the heart and soul of those films. And you really get from this book a better sense of who he was and how he functioned. And wonderful, incredible behind the scenes information, 100 years old. Jim dug out behind the scenes facts and tidbits about how they accomplished some of what they did.
It's amazing.
It's a great book.
Yeah, and you've gotten some nice responses to it as well, because folks were wondering if it was any good, and they're happy to hear that you approve.
Well, Jim is a fine biographer. He wrote a great book on Spencer Tracy and a great book on W.C. Fields, one on James Whale, one on the great production designer William Cameron Menzies. These are all books that would belong in any good film library.
Yeah. Did you make a note about sending Brian?
Yep.
Good boy.
Yep.
He loves old time radio. And so I mentioned my dad's book, and he did not know my dad had written a book on old time radio. How old is that book now?
1998, I think it came out. The Great American Broadcast.
A while. So we wanted to make sure that he got a copy of that, because it's something that he'd like. Ben's asking, I'd like you to settle an argument. At the time of Easter Parade, 1948, were there dancing male leads of greater stature than Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly? No. I don't know who would be. Genuinely, I don't know who could come close.
There was a book that came out, and I'm not going to remember the name now, about, it was an academic book, very well written though, readable, not just like a treatise type book, on the great male dancers of film. And they didn't include, and he talked about starring dancers. Like Ray Bolger was a featured player, and the Nicholas brothers were featured, but they didn't also carry the lead role or the protagonist role in the movie.
Sure.
But the one that he left out was Dan Daly, who was often Betty Grable's leading man, and a tall, lanky guy who was a hoofer, and underrated, I think. I'll leave it at that. Plug for Dan Daly.
There you go.
An arbitrary plug for Dan Daly.
Now, that is Yes, Dan, It Sure Is Dandy, isn't it?
That's right.
That's right. Just as we have tchotchkes that you can see here, we have a lot of tchotchkes also in our bathrooms, because he uses whatever space he can find. And so there are a couple of advertisements that he has, especially at our old house. And
for Van Heusen shirts. Man,
what hues in Van Heusen? And, you spend enough time in the bathroom, you start to memorize all the ads. So one of them is, yes, Dan, it sure is dandy, Dan Daly. How else do you learn things but by being in the bathroom?
That's right.
Jonathan, I know you asked this last week, Jonathan, and we didn't have a chance to answer you. He was asking if we've ever interviewed deaf actors like Marlee Matlin or Troy Kotzer. Troy is really new to the film game. I did get to meet him, but didn't have a chance to interview him, though I did speak to his publicist about it because I would like to. And Scott Feinberg interviewed him. Scott Feinberg, who writes for The Hollywood Reporter, great guy, and his podcast is called Awards Chatter, and he interviews everybody.
Yeah.
And he's very, very good.
I have met Marlee Matlin briefly.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
But haven't really ever interviewed her.
But I'd like to. No reason not to. Eric says, Scorsese's... Okay, so my question today that I asked folks is, what are some of your favorite unsung movies? Eric says Scorsese's documentaries don't get the attention they should, and I love the film he made about his parents, Italian American.
Yeah. Well, talk about a rich vein to tap. His mother, who also has a wonderful part in Goodfellas, that you couldn't cast better.
So funny.
I mean, these are not just his parents. They're salt of the earth. They're real people. They're earthy, uncensored, unfiltered, people of Italian American heritage. It's a wonderful film. It's a wonderful film. Also, more recently, he did a 6-part series with Fran Lebowitz for I think for HBO.
Was it Netflix?
Was it Netflix? I'm sorry. If it's Netflix, I'm sorry.
It might be Netflix.
Yeah, it might be. It's called Pretend It's a City.
Yeah, let me double check. I think it's Netflix.
Scorsese loves Fran Lebowitz, the author and humorist, and he did a feature film with her, one of his feature documentaries, and then expanded.
Netflix, yeah.
Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Okay, well, it made me smile, it made me laugh, it made me feel good.
Which is awesome. Kyle says, I found it really cool that, oops, sorry, I just moved away. Come back to me. I found it really cool that Troy Kotzer helped with the languages of the Tusken Raiders in The Mandalorian. I did not know that, but that is very cool. Yeah, it's, we've talked about it a bit, how cool it's been to have the translators, the signing folks front and center, because it has sort of reminded people that they exist, but also that you can function. You know?
It expands us. Though it
was really funny at the Academy Awards when she handed him the award and then realized that he couldn't hold it because the way he speaks is with his hands.
Right.
I thought that was so funny because it was just it's a moment that you wouldn't have thought about. And so she went, oh yeah, and had to take it back so he could start signing.
I remember the year. Did I already talk about Louise Fletcher?
Yes.
The year that she won for the Cuckoo's Nest, and they didn't anticipate that she would be signing for her parents, for her deaf parents, and had to suddenly, and fortunately did, like pull the camera back so that they could see her hands.
It's man, it's just a fascinating world, isn't it? Trevor is saying, is there an easily accessible list of DVD/Blu-ray/Laserdisc commentaries that Leonard has done / contributed to? No. I can't begin to guess how many times you've been a talking head on
there's
things.
There's a lot. I worked on the John Wayne series for Paramount Home Video, the so-called Bat Jack films, High and the Mighty, Island in the Sky, McClintock, and the others. I hosted the Harold Lloyd films for New Line Cinema. And then Rich Carell and I did a commentary for one of them, I think The Freshman.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Dick Ban and I did had a lot of fun doing commentaries on
Little Rascals.
No, on Laurel and Hardy.
Right.
For Warner Home Video. We did Bonnie Scotland and I think Fra Diavolo. Again, it's a little fuzzy at this moment. And I did Night at the Opera.
Yeah, but also a lot of others. There's so many. Nitram with Anthony LaPaglia is insanely intense and has a lot to say. 3 more mass shootings over the weekend. Well, Matthew, so I watched Nitram and we interviewed Anthony LaPaglia maybe 2.5 weeks ago for the podcast, and that episode is up for that film. And I mean, it's not an upper, is it? Nitram. It's a tough movie to sit through, though a lot of people are not familiar with the history of that. Nitram is about the incident that changed gun laws permanently in Australia.
And its title is Martin spelled backwards.
Yeah, Martin spelled backwards. And the young man who shot and killed 20-some people, but after that, they immediately changed gun laws. And we won't go into all of that because it's a whole other conversation, but why we don't have stricter laws, I don't know. Anyway, Uh, uh, the movie is really, really tough. And as I say, if you learn, you can read about what they call the massacre. It's fascinating and strange, but of course, just a really big part of Australian history. So that's that film. Definitely not something you should watch if you are sad or stressed. That is not the movie for you. Since it's Passover / Easter, what's your favorite biblical epic?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite biblical epic.
Yeah, I don't. I think the closest might be like Monty Python. I think that might be the closest I have.
I don't know. I can't give an adequate answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd rather not answer than give a hurried or bad answer. Forgive me.
Yeah. Mats says, "Happy Sunday, Maltins." Hello, thank you. Have you seen A Safe Place by Henry
Jaglom.
Jaglom, yeah, very underrated. He says, "Have you?" I have.
Not since it came out. My memories are a little
Foozy.
Yeah.
Slightly foozy.
Tuesday Weld and Orson Welles.
Jim says, "The happiest holiday to you folks. Well, it was unsung for many years on your highest recommendation. I treated myself on my birthday to the Criterion Blu-ray disc of The Incredible Shrinking Man. Superb. Was wondering if you agree with me that with all the new film tech, this story could benefit from a remake. Besides the sharper effects, it could tackle more of Matheson's adult subplots."
Well, I never read Matheson's original story, so I found the film completely satisfying. Even though, I mean, it's it was a '50s genre picture, and not didn't explore everything as thoroughly as you indicate, as a modern day movie might. I just like the movie the way it is, so it doesn't leave me wanting. Is the best way to put it.
Trevor says, "My annual spring holiday watch is Lilies of the Field with Sidney Poitier. Don't hear it talked about much." I just watched that recently. It was on TV, and I watched that again recently. He's
magic.
He's beautiful.
He's magic.
Such an incredible person to watch, isn't he?
Yeah.
Jerry's asking if you ever met Gene Kelly.
Yes. Fortunately and finally.
Yes.
I only had one real. I met him to say hello once, but then I got to interview him. His third wife, Patricia.
Third and final, as she likes to say. Third and final.
For That's Entertainment Part 3, and we had a good chat, and it's where I learned one of my favorite little-known Gene Kelly factoids, that he idolized Buster Keaton, and that he actually visualized Buster when he was doing a lot of his dance moves and a lot of his choreography, because he understood and appreciated Buster's control of his body.
Yeah.
And his comedic use. Of his body.
Well, that's it's a very.
And they played on the MGM baseball team.
Yeah, which I love. I love that. You can find photos of some of those sorts of events where you have the tons of stars. It's very entertaining to watch. Matt says, "Have you watched the documentary on Hulu about Scotty Bowers, author of the memoir Full Service, and his years of providing stars with, shall we say, extracurricular dalliances? Many are critical of the book because it shatters the myth." I think that's why he threw it in there, because it shatters the myth on stars' reputations. It definitely feels like a kiss and tell. The documentary is peculiar in its surprising poignancy. I wasn't certain I would enjoy it, but I did. Here's the thing about Scotty Bowers.
I'm not sure I buy what Scotty Bowers is selling. Yeah. I'm not sure I trust him as a source.
And no one else does either.
I'm not sure. I don't trust him.
No. And
I don't trust his stories. No. Some of them may be true.
Yeah.
But I have no way of verifying.
But no, he obviously is someone who continually comes up because of the things he says. But most people will say that it in no way was he what he says he was, and was he where he says he was, all of that kind of stuff.
I'm always wary of somebody who comes up as a source or resource that no one else ever talks about.
Yeah.
Now, even though admittedly he would have been in the shadows,
Yeah.
even so, someone
Someone would
surely
have seen you,
would have
you know,
mentioned him in a tell-all book or an
but
interview.
no one,
that I
not
know
a
of.
living soul.
That I know.
No, because I researched. Did you remember when I watched this doc?
No.
I watched this doc and came to you and I said, "Wow, Scotty Bowers, strange guy with a lot of stuff." And immediately your face went. I went, "Oh, okay." Yeah, I don't think that he's a person we should listen to. And as I say, most don't. But hey, the stories are fun, right? And print the legend, all of that. He's also in that season of, was it American Horror Story? No, it wasn't. It was one of his other things.
No, that was the Hollywood series that Ryan Murphy did.
Yeah, that one. And they're saying that Dylan McDermott's role is based off of Scotty Bowers.
Scotty Bowers, right?
But no, I would not take anything he says to heart. But as I say, people love to make stuff up, if other people can't corroborate the stories, then how can we trust them? Yeah, that's
good question.
As my dad said, the thing is, it doesn't matter how careful you are. Someone has to see you at some point. Even if it's at a party, someone has to know you're there. And if no one does, and no one can say that you were ever at any of these exclusive places, yeah, kind of a strange thing. But as you know, there are so many folks who kind of find ways to put themselves places.
Yeah.
Something that comes up a lot, of course, are the various little rascals who are not little rascals. This is a strange thing, but just talk about it.
It's died out now because enough time has passed.
Yeah.
The Little Rascals, Our Gang comedies, started in 1922, sputtered to an end in 1945. That's a pretty long span. So in the 60s and 70s, there were a number of people claiming to have been former Our Gang kids and getting away with it, getting noticed, getting written about in local newspapers, sometimes getting picked up by wire services and winding up, with national attention, getting on television shows, getting interviewed. ABC 2020 one night showed a guy in Phoenix, Arizona, who was bagging groceries, who claimed to be buckwheat, the original buckwheat. And before that hour-long show was over, I was on the phone with Spanky McFarland, who'd already been on the phone with Bill Thomas Jr., Buckwheat's son, who'd already been on the phone with a producer from ABC. A producer at 2020 lost her job. I believe it was a female, lost her job over that story, which was so completely bogus. But it was not a singular event. It happened all the time. I was interviewing Spanky in the late 70s at a nostalgia convention in New York at the now bulldozed Commodore Hotel. And we were on a little platform in a room where they set up folding chairs. And there was an aisle leading right to the platform. And a guy kind of walked forward in the aisle and said, "Hey, Spanky, it's Speeder," or something like that. And Spanky didn't miss a beat. He said, "Hey, Speeder." There was no Speeder in Our Gang. I mean, and then a year later, Alice was awakened middle of the night by the New York Post saying that Speeder from Our Gang had just passed away at a nursing home on Staten Island. And so she told this night reporter, there was no such person in Our Gang. There's a lot of that. And
it's so weird to me. It's a bit like Anastasia, It's such a strange thing. But it's such a strange thing to tell people you were somewhere that you weren't.
Spanky told me that told Dick Band, my partner, on that book, that 3 or 4 women came up to him over the years and said, "Hi, I'm Darla." How do you do that? How do you do that?
Can you imagine? It's one thing if it's one person who's nuts. There are crazy people out there. That's fine. But this.
And fortunately, in terms of verification, almost every featured, not almost every featured child actor in our gang has been identified.
Yeah.
We have signed contracts.
Yeah.
We have publicity releases. We know what their legal names were. Now, where there's some gray area is there were background kids.
Yeah.
There were kids who had incidental roles from time to time. So that's one way that somebody may be just stretching the truth.
Yeah.
Maybe, if we want to be generous.
Yeah.
Also, there were imitation Our Gang comedies, you know. And people, you know, sort of just forget.
You're not gonna,
people forget that they were not the real Our Gang comedies.
Yeah. What do you mean by it's kind of like Anastasia? If you are not familiar, the Romanovs, the Tsar and Tsarina, when they had to flee, them and their kids, this is Rasputin and all that kind of stuff. When they had to flee the palace, they were all murdered in pretty horrific ways. Like not just murdered, like really murdered. Like they went to town on that murder. And it's a crazy story, but fascinating. And there are lots of books about it. But basically, the one body that they claimed could not be found was Anastasia. One body. They could account for the other siblings and they could account for mother and father, but not her. So what happened is that not just one person claimed to be her, many claimed to be her. Many different people came forward
in later
saying,
years,
I'm the real Anastasia. And there was one woman who they believed. There was one woman who they believed because I guess she knew enough. Careful. I guess she knew enough and knew things that they didn't, you know.
So it couldn't have known otherwise.
And they did a DNA test when she died. So she lived with people believing that she really was her. And when she died, that's when they did the DNA testing and found out she was not Anastasia. And yes, the whole thing is she died with her family. Like there was no such thing, but it's one of those stories that continues on. Yes, thank you. Not just murder, super murder. Exactly.
Yes.
Super murder.
You'll want to refer to the 1956 film with Ingrid Bergman called Anastasia.
Or also the animated one that's pretty adorable and stars Meg Ryan, because why not? I do love that movie. Nick says, are there any animated films, shorts, or features that you would like to see inducted into the Library of Congress's National Film Registry?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But
that was your baby for a long time.
I voted on that. I was on the voting board for 25 years.
25 years.
Well, you know, with only 25 slots every year, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. There are still so many, not just classic, but certifiably classic landmark movies that have yet to be adopted, yet to be added to that list. And every year, it's a, you know, and of course, you could put every Chaplin film on that list. You could put every Marx Brothers film on that list. You could put every Leo McCarey film on that list. You know, it's going to be around a long time.
Well, one of the interesting things, I can say this much about it, is my dad and some of the other folks that he knew who would be voting, sometimes they would get together and try to say, okay, what do we really want to push for? Because if there are so many films that you want to get in each year, sometimes you have to know that you're not going to get everything. So you talk to some of your friends and go, okay, we really want to push for this.
Yeah.
Because powers combined are a bit better than, you know, on your own. Kyle says, I love Mark Turtletop's 2018 film Puzzle, starring the late, great Irfan Khan, as he helps a woman played by Kelly MacDonald compete in puzzle tournaments. I have never heard of that, but that sounds really cool.
And those are actors that I like.
Exactly. I like them. I like. That I like. I would love to know how you came up with the idea for this amazing video where you showed us how much love you have for cliffhangers. And he's got the little VHS, a picture of him with the VHS of your cliffhangers thing.
That was a
I don't
wonderful.
know if you guys can see it if I tilt it the right
Yeah,
way.
that was a wonderful period in the early '90s when I was commissioned to do a number of documentaries by Republic Pictures Home Video, which doesn't exist anymore because it was absorbed into various mergers into Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those properties are now owned by Paramount, and Paramount's doing something with some of them. They're going to show Spy Smasher, Ben Burt's re-edit of Spy Smasher, at the TCM Festival next week.
Is anybody who is hanging out with us today, is anybody going to be at TCM? Are any of you guys going to be coming to TCM? Sorry, go on.
Okay.
Just asking.
So some of those documentaries wound up being aired on what was then A&E, when it was still called Arts and Entertainment Television, before it became whatever it's morphed into now. And one of them was called Cliffhangers, Adventures from the Thrill Factory. We got to interview the director, William Whitney, the greatest serial director of all time, Clayton Moore, who before he did The Lone Ranger starred in Perils of Nyoka and other great Republic serials, Frankie Coughlin Jr., Billy Batson in one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Republic serial, Adventures of Captain Marvel, two of the great Republic leading ladies, Peggy Stewart and Kay Aldridge, and I'm forgetting somebody.
We like to say there's a Rolodex, and sometimes you can hear them flipping through and trying to get to that last name.
Oh man, it was such fun to work on that. And, I did it with Mark Lamberti, who was a major fan and buff of all these. So we were good partners on those projects.
Mm.
And it came out on VHS and stayed there. And it has not been seen or shown since. So, and I would like it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in addition to taking 30 years off my life,
careful.
You know, it would be fun to see that again.
It's wild, isn't it? Jason says, "Happy Sunday, Maltins. Happy Sunday to you." While it's not an unknown film, I never felt The Good Shepherd got the attention or praise it deserved, especially considering its cast and Robert De Niro at the helm. Are there any other films about the CIA/espionage in general you would recommend?
Not up to that level. That's really good. I mean, it's a great reminder of how the CIA began. It began as the OSS during, and there's an Alan Ladd movie called OSS from the 40s, but I doubt that it's too authentic. This one is based on a book, and which intrigued Robert De Niro enough that he committed to direct it, and it's just really good and such an interesting story. I don't have anything else to hold up alongside it.
Yeah.
Speaking of holding things up,
I'm gonna finish. We have two more.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna let you do your show and tell. Ryan says, with his 85th anniversary today, what is your favorite Daffy Duck cartoon? And do you like Tex Avery and Bob Clampett's Screwball Daffy or Chuck Jones's Greedy Daffy more?
I have to admit, I like the Screwball Daffy more.
Yeah.
Partly because that's who I met first. When I was growing up, local television had the earlier Looney Tunes, the ones where he was really wacky and wild, from the late 30s and early 40s. So that was my Daffy. Later, I got to meet the Chuck Jones, Mike Maltese Daffy from Rabbit Seasoning and Duck Amuck.
That's Wabbit.
And I love him too. I love him too. But the Screwball Daffy is still my favorite. And
why not? Are you of the same opinion as Roger Ebert that video games are not an art form? I don't think so. I think they're an art form.
I think they've become an art form.
Yeah. My husband is a gamer and he loves it. And that's how he relaxes, is he'll sit in this room actually, because this is where the big TV is, and he will play for hours. That's how he relaxes. It's his favorite. And for all of us, because I never played video games, sit up, Leonard Maltin. I never played video games or nothing like what he plays. And so for all of us, my mom included, now seeing some of these, they're beautiful. Like a lot of them are incredible to
Oh well,
look
I mean,
at.
the art direction and the
But they really are incredible to look at. I can't get over it sometimes.
yeah.
Just how stunning it can be. Though my mom is concerned that he spends a portion of the day shooting people. But hey, but yeah, I think it's an art form.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it is.
It has grown and it has
Yeah,
evolved,
yeah.
and there's no question. I mean,
And remember, Roger might have said something different now.
yes. Now,
You know,
if Roger saw what has happened
yeah,
in that world, I think he might have a different point of view.
yeah. And because he
Because
wasn't a stick in the mud.
no, he was
He wasn't,
open minded. He was
yeah.
always open minded, and he couldn't have envisioned the level
Who could
of
really?
artistry and craft that can now be and money,
Yeah.
budgets, all of that.
No, you're getting real actors,
Mhm.
not just sort of like you find some guy. You're getting top tier actors to do some of your voices. Yeah, there are. Again, if it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't know. But because of him and what we get to watch, it's really incredible. Really, really is. All right, share your share.
Well, first off, I guess I'll save these Blu-rays for next time
Sure.
because
And
there's.
P.S. Because next weekend is TCM, we will not be on because he will be working.
Come and join us.
Yeah, come to TCM
At the TCM Classic
Yeah.
Film Festival in the heart of Hollywood.
That's in the heart of Hollywood.
Which is to
I'll
say-
have a baby.
Club TCM at the
Yeah.
Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, built in 1927,
Mhm.
and right across the street, also built in 1927, Sid Grauman's great masterpiece, The Chinese Theater, which is now owned by TCL.
Which we will never call it that.
But all credit to them.
No, they've done a beautiful job,
for,
but I'm never
you know.
going to call it the TCL Theater. That's just not happening.
Plus, they wave a lot of money. Okay, give me that dog.
You showed him before.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, huh?
No.
Yep, I promise. Because I know how heavy he is.
This is a promotional item for The Biscuit Eater, and I'm so sad that film is unavailable except if there are bootleg copies around, and there may well be bootleg copies around. But it was a B movie, a Paramount B movie.
P.S. This is really heavy. If anybody breaks in.
Yeah. About bird dogs in Georgia, shot on location in Georgia. And
close. There we go. The Biscuit Eater.
And I read, last time I was in Atlanta, I read a magazine piece about the history of filmmaking in Atlanta, and it didn't mention this. So they didn't know about the film, but it's hard to. Walt Disney Studio produced a remake in the 70s, and people may know that. But if you ever have a chance to see this one, and the young boy who starred in it, Billy Lee, I got to meet at that Our Gang reunion down in
was it San Diego?
Palm Springs, Palm Desert. That's where Spanky and Robert Blake got to meet each other again.
Is that the one I was at? Which is the one that I was at? Where they all signed a PD for me.
Oh, that was one of Ray Court's shows.
Was it?
Yeah.
There you go. Eric says, I wish I could be there. I have a huge crush on Alicia Malone. I can tell you, Alicia's great. She is great and a lot of fun.
And has a new book.
And it is really, they can't help it. Boys just crush all over her, and you watch her walk into a room and they just go, who? But she's a really lovely person.
Bridge, the game of bridge, reached fad-ish proportions in the 30s.
Your mother loved it?
And a lot of people who came of age in the 30s and 40s played bridge, or as it was officially called, I guess, contract bridge.
What year is the Biscuit Eater movie?
1940.
There you go.
Paramount Pictures, now owned by Universal.
Yes.
But apparently, they issued a scorecard with Betty Boop and Bimbo.
Yeah. Alicia doesn't have crazy hair like me. Her hair is red or blonde. No, I wish I would dye Alicia's hair in a heartbeat. She does have some really fun tattoos, though. But
Isn't that neat?
no, Alicia has normal people hair. Alicia has regular human hair. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, Bimbo's putting up the...
Yeah, Bimbo's at the bottom putting up the sign. You can see at the bottom there. Isn't that funny?
Speaking of Paramount Pictures, now owned by Universal.
Yeah.
That's an awkward segue. But anyway, somebody called my attention to a film on YouTube. There's a lot of public domain films that play on YouTube. And some of them are crappy films. Some of them are crappy prints of good films. And this one caught my eye. It's called Evenings for Sale. Sorry. I really am sorry. In 1932, starring Herbert Marshall, Charlie Ruggles, and Mary Boland, and Sari Maritza. And I watched it. It's very short. This is a short film that feels short. And I said, this is really good. This is really, nobody knows this movie? And I looked it up, and it was made the same year as Ernst Lubitsch's masterpiece, Trouble in Paradise, and which also starred Herbert Marshall. Herbert Marshall was like in 8 Paramount films that year alone. And how could this fly so far under the radar? And so I wrote a piece about it, which we posted on our website, and it got a lot of attention because I said it was Lubitsch-like. Because Lubitsch, being the master of sophisticated comedy and comedy drama, this was almost like the real thing.
James says Leonard loves those pre-code movies. Racy.
True. Well, Charlie Tabish at TCM got a 35mm print, the right way to see it. And I'm going to host and introduce that screening a week from today on Sunday afternoon. I forget which theater. I think we're in one of the 6 plexes.
Sure.
And
so what are they using this year? It's the China. There's a 6-plex at Hollywood and Highland, which is attached to Grauman's Chinese, and owned by the same TCL. And we lovingly call that the Chinette, because the Chinese is the big theater. So it's the Chinese, the Chinette, American Legion.
Yeah.
And is that it? Just those 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're around, if you can get in, it's really worth seeing.
Yeah.
Because the one on YouTube is watchable, but not a great print. And this film deserves to be seen better looking than that.
The reason I bring up venues is because this year, because it's undergoing all the renovations, the American Cinematheque is not being used. But hopefully that renovation will...
Right.
Sorry. It's called The Egyptian. It's run by the American Cinematheque. Right. Teresa says, Madam Satan is my favorite pre-code movie. It's a good one.
Who wants to go to hell with Madam Satan? James Cromwell, wonderful actor, told me that he took his mother, Kay Johnson, to see Madam Satan at when they revived it at Lincoln Center one year.
Wow.
And he marveled at that film is so over the top. That's Cecil B. DeMille's most outlandish movie.
Sorry, someone's asking if your award is going to be streamed or televised. I think that what they told us, have they announced who's giving it to you? Can I say that?
They now have announced it.
Warren Beatty is going to present my dad with the award. He's very kind and offered to do that. Warren and Leonard, BFFs. They have a bit of a relationship. I went to school with his kids. And let me tell you something, when Warren Beatty calls and you answer the phone and he says, "Hi, this is Warren Beatty," your immediate response is to go, "No, it isn't," but it is. So yeah, Warren is going to be giving my dad the award, which
very
is
generous.
Very, very nice of him. And so I think what Susanna was saying, one of the folks at TCM was telling us, is that it's going to be filmed. And I think
they
put up later.
Maybe show an excerpt.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I plan on trying to record as much of it as I can.
Don't say that out loud.
can do what I want. I can do it on my phone. Everybody else has a phone. I can do it on my phone. I do whatever I want. It's fine. Unless Warren's permitted, it'll be fine. Anyway, I'll try to get some of it, if not all of it. But yeah, Warren is. Whatever happens is going to be interesting. That's for damn sure. He's incredibly intelligent, obviously, and he's done so much. But he also can 100% go off on some sort of a tangent, and I almost hope he does. Almost hope that. Anyway, that'll be fun. So that is next Saturday night at the American Legion.
And I'm introducing one of my favorite films, Counselor at Law, starring the great John Barrymore, in one of his greatest performances. And it was the first A picture directed by William Wyler, which helped solidify his career and nowhere to go but up, 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 which is what happened with him. And Barrymore only had one more great performance in him, which was 20th Century, before his memory failed and his career sputtered. It's a sad story. We don't need to go into in more detail right now, but you can see him giving a hell of a performance in a play by Elmer Rice, the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. Counselor at Law. Okay.
Will the Barrymore be 35 millimeter?
I believe they've borrowed a 35 millimeter
print.
Print from Universal.
Yeah, I think they got the print for it.
So another reason I chose it is that I knew that there was a great 35 millimeter print.
Well, you were saying they restored it recently?
No,
they just have a great print.
Yep. This was a little insert in the LA Times, apparently. The little preview. Yeah, compliments of the LA Times. It was a giveaway.
So on the front, it says little preview, compliments of Los Angeles Times, just kids. Bottom, it says Joe Frank Cobb. See last page for next week's theater program. So
anyway,
this is
Joe Cobb, charter member of our gang.
Yep. This is the front of it.
And then it unfolds. And you open it once and you get some more tidbits and a picture of Mary Kornman, our gang's original leading lady. And you open it again. That's Ben Alexander, then a child actor, later Jack Webb's partner on Dragnet.
It is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
And then more inside, and there's the late baby Peggy, who we knew, Diana Sarah Carey. And on the back, a promo for Sugar's Eagle Rock Theater, not far from us.
No.
Showing Cecil B. DeMille's The Volga Boatman. Greatest picture of the year at our regular prices. Don't miss this opportunity to see this tremendous production. General admission, 25 cents. Children, a dime.
Tyler says, I remember the days when you used to introduce the Our Gang shorts. Thanks for the wonderful memories. That is, I will tell you, one of the things people come up to my dad the most. It's usually that or Star Wars, if people are a certain age, because they grew up seeing those VHSs. And man, oh, well, okay. This is the last thing I'll bring up because do you know the magazine Motion Picture Herald?
Oh, yes.
One of his first big purchases, so were you 17 still?
I probably was 18 by then.
Okay. So when my dad was going to do his first book, when he was 17 turning 18 and he'd been signed on, the thing is, I asked my dad, when you first got money, how much money did they give you? Right? Because the thing is, when you're young, anything can seem huge. Like $1,000 to an 18-year-old. Now things are whatever, but that's a lot of money. So I said to my dad, how much did they pay you? And I'm going to say it. And he said $10,000. And I said, oh my God, that's so much money. Oh my God.
And the man who signed me to this contract to do the first edition of the movie guide called TV Movies, he said, just try to have some left over when you're done. because he knew I would have to hire people to help me to do it. And in fact, I did. And in fact, they got more money out of it than I did. But I still had a little money left, and I made 2 purchases.
So, okay. So here I am saying to my dad, so what, you got money. What's the first thing you did with it? In my mind, forgetting that he's not a normal child. Did you go on a trip? Did you go out with friends? You take a bunch of friends out in Manhattan? What did you do?
I bought a reconditioned IBM Selectric typewriter, the Rolls Royce of typewriters. And I bought a complete run of Motion Picture Herald from the 1930s and 40s, my favorite trade magazine, especially the 30s.
All of them.
And I've been poring over them at the library at Lincoln Center, New York, the New York Public Library branch. And I fell in love with them, and I still am in love with them.
And I love them. They're so much fun. Ha! Do you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Warren Beatty's calling him on the phone right now. I'm not joking. It's Warren Beatty's calling right now. Well, with that, that's really funny. With that, my friends, we will not see you next Sunday because of TCM, but we'll be back after that. And I hope everybody take good care of yourselves. And we will miss you for a week, but we will return triumphantly. Yeah, I'll tell Warren you said hi. It never becomes normal. Like, just to be really clear, nothing about that feels normal. Okay? Very, very strange. Yeah, be safe. Take good care of yourself, guys.
See you in 2 weeks. Be kind.
Yep. Bye.